All right, here we go as things are logging on, and my cat is playing with the headphones. She digs this. She likes to. Are you intrigued by this? Lucy's on my lap. I don't know if you can see her, but she's just kind of hanging out on my lap, just doing her thing. Rockfin, I'm waiting for you to wake up. YouTube, are you there? I think YouTube is already awake. YouTube is already awake. What's up, YouTube? How are you? Rockfin, what's up? Gotta wake up. There you go. Rockfin was definitely third by a little bit. Rockfin is in third. Twitter's in first as usual. Twitter's always first. I feel like none of you guys care, like which platform loads first. You're like, Ron, there's a delay no matter what platform we're on. We've seen you, but yeah, I have to wait until I see it because there's no on-site producer. You know the drill. But you guys are like, Rob, we don't. I feel you. I keep score. Why not? I should start a tally so I can give actual percentages. Lucy, it's just a headphone cord. It's not that exciting. Here we go. Lucy's chilling today. She's having a good morning. She had a nice breakfast. She's on my lap. She's purring and she's saying happy Monday to all of you. What's up, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and to everyone listening to the podcast later. Hope you are crushing it. Shout out to Indie Left, our friends over at Indie Left. They curate all the content creators and streamers you know and love. They compile a nice little list for you, and they make it convenient. You can get all your news at one stop, and they update it twice a day. To find out everything they got going on and to subscribe to their Discord, check them out at independentleft.media. All right, we got some fun news today, and joining me is my buddy, the one, the only, comedian extraordinaire. He's on a road trip right now, Mr. Krish Moen. What's up, Krish?
How's it going? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. I hope your travels are keeping you safe and well.
They are.
You're following the North Star.
Always. I don't use a GPS. I navigate specifically by star charts.
That's amazing.
Because I'm that authentic about it.
Did you ever meet people who can tell time by the stars? I mean, it's really not like some secret, but I don't know how to do it. I mean,
I don't
it's
either.
It's not like super impossible or anything. You just need to know someone who knows how to do it, and they can probably
I can give you around noon. I'm like, the sun's all pretty much over my head. That we're approaching the noon hour.
I wouldn't even be able to pull that off. I would get like thrown off somehow, and I'd be like, I don't know. Yeah, I would never be able to do that. But you can. There's people who like by the stars they can tell the time, and they're like, it is da da da, and you're just marvel at their amazingness.
That is impressive. It's the same thing as people that like can go into the woods and figure out their direction. Where I'm like, if I go on a trail and the trail ends, I'm like, I got to turn around. I don't know where I am.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't. Yeah, I can't navigate through woods. I freak out. I can't. I have a hard enough time navigating on roads. I have a terrible sense of direction. Like I just have like the worst sense of direction.
I'm okay. My big thing is I can't tell my lefts from my rights without looking at my hand. Because my right hand has a little mole on it.
What's a backwards L? You do like the whole L left and then backwards L right. I mean, that's what I do.
It's my brain doesn't. My brain's like, yeah, but that one's also an L, kind of.
Oh, right? Really?
Yeah, it's so I go by the little mole on my hand. So if I ever get like a palm tattoo and it's on my right hand, I'm fucked forever.
Or if you just get that mole removed,
like, done.
What are you gonna do? You're not gonna be able to know anymore.
I would be lost forever.
Jeez.
People in Pittsburgh giving me Pittsburgh directions would be infuriated with me nonstop.
That is such a thing. So for anyone who's not from the same hometown as Chris and myself, in Pittsburgh, they will give you directions, and it's always crazy sounding because in Pittsburgh's one of those cities, and there's other mid-sized cities that are like this, but Pittsburgh's definitely one of them, where they just kept building shit on top of shit. Like the city was completely unplanned. So they're just like, well, let's just build. So if you look at a map of Pittsburgh, it looks like Wonderland, like the way the roads work. And you're like, how does this work? It doesn't. It doesn't work. Like there are times in Pittsburgh where they're like, you can't get there from here. And they're not kidding. You really can't. So like you get these directions from them where they're just like, go around the stork and then follow the unicorn. And it's just freaking nuts. And you're like, you've got to be, and they'll like they can recite them perfectly.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just like, just stop, because I'm not going to retain any of this. I'm going to just put this in my Google Maps and hope. That's what I'm going to do. And It's I mean, I live in Los Angeles. It's not like Los Angeles is much better as far as getting around, but you know, we don't have all these crazy. I mean, well, we do have crazy road systems, but you know, just because there's so many freaking people. But anyway, so guys, this is going on right now. And we're gonna go to this Huffington Post article because their framing of it is pretty freaking funny. But you probably think on a daily basis, I wish the progressives would stand up to Nancy Pelosi. Stand up to her. Well, I got some news for you. People are standing up to Nancy Pelosi. And somehow, only in the Democratic Party, only the Democratic Party could pull this off. They're standing up to Nancy Pelosi for the wrong reasons. Only the Democratic Party could manage. And by the way, Nancy Pelosi still has their back. We're going to explain this. All right. So let's go here first. We're going to start here. Budget clash pits moderate Democrats against Biden and Pelosi. Those progressive superstars, Biden and Pelosi. So here's what's going on. First of all, Congress, welcome back from vacation. You guys earned it. With most of Biden's domestic agenda at stake, this is from Huffington Post, it's unimaginable that Pelosi would let her own party centrists deal Biden an embarrassing defeat. So here's what's going on. And I love the framing from this article. It's great. That's why I picked it. Outnumbered and with their party's most powerful leaders arrayed against them, 9 moderate Democrats trying to upend plans for enacting Joe Biden's multi-trillion-dollar domestic program face a House showdown. The 9 brave moderates, Krish, just trying to make sure we don't do anything in the public interest, are bravely. They're so outnumbered. There's no other moderates except for pretty much everybody else. They're outnumbered.
This is like the Fellowship of the Democrats over here. I feel like I'm reading the Huffington Post version of Lord of the Rings.
They're so brave. They're just so
brave against all odds.
They're like, my precious, and it's a copy of an Ayn Rand novel. That's what they're doing. They're defending their precious. Okay, so what's going on here? All the rebellious group must do to prevail is outmaneuver the White House, Nancy Pelosi, and numerous progressive colleagues who have stood firmly against them. That's no small task. All right, so check this out. The House meets Monday, that's today, and what Democratic leaders hope will just be a 2-day interruption of their August recess. I mean, we wouldn't want it to be any more than that. They've earned this vacation. They've worked very hard. We don't want to interrupt their recess too much. So here's what's going on. They want quick approval of the budget resolution setting up future passage. That's what that's what the other Democrats supposedly want, with exception to these 9 bold moderates. Maybe this fall, of legislation directing $3.5 trillion at safety net, blah, 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 blah. The huge measure, largely financed with tax increases on the rich and big business, comprises the heart of Biden's vision for helping families and combating climate change and is progressive's top priority. Okay, so there's this $3.5 trillion package that's out there. Now, of course, this $3.5 trillion package is still nowhere near enough. But is it better than this $1 trillion quote unquote bipartisan package? Yes, it's better than that. But here's what's going on. The moderates have threatened to oppose the budget resolution, which is what they need to pass this $3.5 trillion package, unless the House first approves a $1 trillion 10-year package of road, power grid, broadband, and other infrastructure projects that already passed the Senate. With unanimous Republican opposition expected to the fiscal blueprint, moderates' 9 votes would be more than enough to sink it in a narrowly divided House. So basically what's going on here is these 9 moderates stood up to Pelosi and said, we're not going to support budget resolution for this $3.5 trillion package unless you support our quote-unquote bipartisan $1 trillion package that passed the Senate. And Kristen Sinema and that Republican out of Ohio, I believe Portman, are kind of the main pushers of that $1 trillion bill. So they're really saying, we'll sink it. We'll sink the $3.5 trillion package unless you approve our $1 trillion package. Now, why are they so eager, you might ask, to really push this $1 trillion package? Is it because they really, really want to be fiscal conservatives and they're worried about the budget, which, by the way, is all complete and utter bullshit, and we'll get to that in a second. But is that the reason? Are they just being fiscal conservatives here? Which, by the way, this just goes to show that famous meme, like this whole situation supports that famous meme that I forget who tweeted it initially, but they said, look, the reason I criticize Democrats is not because I side with Republicans. The reason I criticize Democrats is because they side with Republicans. Here you have Democrats siding with Republicans, where even Biden is too progressive for them. Even a still grossly insufficient package, they're willing to sabotage it. They're willing to sabotage the $3.5 trillion package if they don't get their $1 trillion package. And why are they so eager for it? Is it just because they're fiscal conservatives? Well, no. It's actually more corrupt than that. Here's why. So check this out. This is from Fortune. What's actually in the infrastructure deal? $110 billion to fund new roads and bridges, $73 billion to move from fossil fuels to clean energy, upgrade power infrastructure. Okay, so here's all the stuff that's in it. But here's the rub, folks. Here's how they plan to fund the bill. Now, for the $3.5 trillion package, one of the ways they're funding it is actually upping taxes on rich people and corporations, people making over $400,000 and corporations. They're actually upping the taxes there, which should happen. Here's how they're going to pay for the $1 trillion package, though. You ready for this? Redirecting $250 billion in COVID relief funds, including $50 billion intended for federal unemployment relief that was eschewed by some Republican governors. Recouping $50 billion in fraudulent unemployment benefits paid out during the pandemic.
What?
So, you know those crumbs of crumbs that they threw at some Americans? They're taking it back.
Oh, man.
Saving $50 billion by delaying a Medicare rebate rule passed under former President Donald Trump, gaining $30 billion from strengthening tax reporting requirements and enforcement for cryptocurrency, which isn't strengthening requirements, it's an overreach. We covered that on the show a couple weeks ago. And here's the last one. This is great. Benefiting from increased growth from the infrastructure investments. Now, that's pretty vague. What does that mean exactly? Here's my guess on what that means. That means toll roads, privatization, toll roads. Because, they really love that whole idea of privatizing the roads and making everything a toll road for a per mileage usage, which was, who was the architect behind that? The one and only Pete Buttigieg. So in other words, this $1 trillion package redistributes the crumbs of crumbs that was given to you and just replaces the crumbs instead of a moderate tax increase on the richest among us, which is what the $3.5 trillion package does. So it's totally okay to go against Pelosi when you're doing it at the behest of the donor class in Wall Street, which is what these 9 moderates are doing. And I put moderates in quote because they're far right wingers.
They're Republicans.
They're Republicans.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nancy Pelosi doesn't actually oppose the $1 trillion package. She doesn't oppose it. They just want to see both things get through. Like, she doesn't oppose it. This is just straight up like, even incrementalism is too bold. Even that is too bold. We need straight Reaganism on steroids, which is what this $1 trillion thing is.
But
and that's also what they're trying to do.
Which is also like what both, Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden are. They're just extensions of the Reagan administration, like that's what Clinton was. And
that's what everything was for our lifetime. We've literally we have had Reagan and slightly worse than Reagan our entire lives. That's all we've had. Yeah, because I would say the Bush administration even worse than Reaganism. I would say the Bush administration, what they did, we are still reeling the effects from. And it was, kept on autopilot by Obama, kept on autopilot by Trump, kept on autopilot by Biden. And we're still reeling the effects of what they did with the new American century. So we've just had nothing but Reaganism. And here's its latest chapter. And they're supposed to be deliberating on this stuff today. They're supposed to be deliberating. And some of you who are listening to the podcast later, there might be some more updates. But, we're doing this in real time. So that's where they're at right now. So here you have the moderates pushing for more intense Reaganism. Now, here is a little bit of hope before we go to a different topic. And I don't mean the Obama style hope, I mean actual hope. The whole how we going to pay for it is complete and utter bullshit. Why? Well, because we create our own currency, which we use that mechanism at the behest of Wall Street all the time. But we can actually use that to benefit people, which is what the main thing behind modern monetary theory. And by the way, they address inflation. Inflation only happens through crappy policy. You can still create currency to do the types of things we need. Who's one of the main thinkers behind all this? Stephanie Kelton. So here's something to make you feel a little bit of hope before we get off the topic here, because check this out. She tweeted this out today. With the fall semester upon us, I've been fielding a lot of emails from faculty at colleges, universities here and around the world. The deficit myth is being adopted by many who teach econ, but also in finance, political science, public administration, etc. And she goes on to say, if you're using the book, I'd love to see your syllabus and anything else you're willing to share. Contact info on my website. I know it's not a big thing, folks. I know it like pales in comparison to this ridiculous nonsense that we're looking at, but at least an upcoming generation of people are going to be exposed to these ideas. And at some point, they're going to be in charge, hopefully before it's too freaking late. So there you have it.
Yeah,
there you have it. That's what's really going on. That's what's really going on.
In college, if I would have learned any sort of alternative economic theory, that would have been amazing. I would have a much better grasp of or rather, it would help me understand economics a lot more than I do now. I'm not an expert by any means, but I do know that capitalism is completely screwed and is completely screwing the planet. But
Krish, we just haven't found the right way to do it yet.
We just haven't, right?
We haven't. I know that it has crashed every single time it's tried, and it just goes completely to shit every 8 years. And it's been that way all the time throughout human history, but we just haven't found the right way to do it yet. We just haven't. We're going to find it any day now. We're going to find. I mean, it's like every time you have a bunch of sheep around and you put a wolf in there, the wolf eats the sheep. And we just haven't found the right way to do it yet. Like we just haven't
found the right wolf.
We haven't found the right wolf. We haven't talked to the wolf in the right way. We haven't been polite enough, I don't think. But any day now, that is going to change. Any day now. I mean, really, here's all these things that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for this wolf being in with these sheep. We wouldn't have innovation or exchanges for goods and services. That wouldn't exist without a wolf eating sheep.
You know, we all need wool. It doesn't matter how blood-soaked the wool is. We all need the wool. Ron, where you think socialism is going to get you wool? Absolutely not.
I just love those. I love those deflections people make where they're like, well, without capitalism, and then they name something that has really nothing to freaking do with capitalism.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you couldn't make money as a performer without capitalism. Really? Show me. When did Marx say that? I mean, look, I've read Capital. I haven't read every single book involved with that because there's a lot of volumes. But I've read a good portion of it. Where does Marx say performers don't get to make a living? Where does he say that? Where does he say there's no exchange for goods and services? Where does he say that? Where is that? That's never been in socialism ever. That's not a thing.
But isn't there a portion? I'm not even going to try to quote it, but I'm pretty sure there's a portion of it where he talks about like, if we have our basic needs covered, then we can just start creating stuff and make art and paint and do all these wonderful things that help humanity, help our souls and stuff like that. And that's part of it. So it's just like, for people to come out and be like, "Oh, you can't be a comedian if it wasn't for capitalism."
Socialism.
Like, what are you talking about? Of course it is. Like, if I had my basic needs covered, I would be able to do this more.
Right. That's the thing. You'd be able to do it more. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. That's always my favorite. That's always my favorite deflection. So that's what's going on with these infrastructure packages.
Can I make one quick point in terms?
Yeah, of course.
In terms of this whole thing, it's like you said, it's even incrementalism is too bold for these people. It kind of goes back to what happened with the eviction moratoriums, right? Like when Cori Bush and AOC were protesting on the steps of the Capitol. And then the second that they left, all the Capitol police started attacking the actual protesters and activists that were staying on the Capitol steps. To me, and I've gotten some arguments, not like heated arguments, but people have come kind of push back on me a little bit on this, but I still think this is a valid point. To me, all that signaled was, hey, direct action and organizing is cool when a politician is behind it. If the Democrats are behind it, it's a-okay, right?
It's safer for people. I mean, yeah, like the police were not going to mess with people if Cori Bush is there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is that what you mean? Like by like, oh, okay, so it was cool because like they were there.
Kind of, but to me, it also signals like the protests that have politicians there are more valid than the ones that don't. So like the Medicare for All rallies across the countries weren't as valid as what happened on the Capitol steps because Cori Bush wasn't at all of them. I know she showed up to the one in DC for a short bit, but didn't really want public attention and anything, which I understand. But to me, that's kind of what it looked like to me, which was like pushing against
Well, when you say valid, what do you mean by that? Because if you mean like the establishment can't avoid it,
yeah,
because of the media, well then yeah, I mean which is sad. Like it sucks that that's the reality. But I mean, if you mean valid as in like, you know, people taking direct action to better their societies aren't valid unless they're a politician, that I strongly disagree with. I don't think that's what you mean though.
No, yeah, that's. I mean, the first statement is the media is going to give it more attention, and they're going to say it's more legitimate than all of these other. Which to me, the Medicare for All protests or rather the Medicare for All rallies and the strikes and pushing for a general strike, those are all valid forms of fighting for change. But the media and these. I don't know what to even call the people that kind of follow corporate mainstream media look at that and they go, see, now that's how you're supposed to protest, right? They give it that they like normalize it underneath that banner of like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. But if you don't have the politician support, like, oh, that's not okay. You're being
which is like the opposite of how change happens.
Exactly.
I mean, and look, and I've had this conversation a lot, and am I glad that it happened? Yes, I am, because it kept some people in their homes. So yeah, that's good. But did it provide any long-term fixes or any actual like rent relief that people need? No, it didn't do that. It really didn't do it. So like, am I glad that people are in their homes as opposed to not being in their homes? Of course I am. But we still need long-term fixes, and you're not seeing any solutions being proposed by anyone in government, the squad, or anyone else. Nobody. And that's going to take a mass movement of people, and that type of direct action will not be approved by anyone in government. I mean, yeah, like it shows how important direct action is, but you can't just do we can't limit ourselves to direct action that is establishment approved. And I'm sorry, your beloved squad, not you, Krish, but like, your beloved squad is part of the establishment too. I hate to break it to you. They're politicians too, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. And every time I have an argument with somebody that wants to back up the squad, I'm like, hey, they're part of the establishment. Like, this is not the AOC that was going around looking for Pelosi, back in 2018. This is a very different person that is now part of the establishment, which is.
It's like, look, man, people put politicians on pedestals in this country. And it's so crazy. We put politicians, the collective, the United States, we put politicians on pedestals here more than other countries, and they do less. Yeah. They do the least, and we worship them the hardest. It makes no sense. It would be like if there was a sports team that didn't even go out on the field and instead just flipped the audience off the entire game, and they had the most diehard fans, more so than any other sports team. It's like, yeah, their fans freaking love them. Like, because instead of flipping them off, they waved, and the fans love them. They freaking waved instead of just flipping them off. Holy shit. One of them tweeted something nice. One of them's playing video games right now on Twitch. They're the best team ever. Best team ever. But they're not really doing shit. It doesn't. Shut up.
Right. Exactly.
No, it's like actual true activists who are like devoted to activism, they don't see politicians that way. Like, it just doesn't make sense to them. They see politicians the way I think people should see politicians, as a tool. And you can, associate tool however you want in any sense, but they are one tool in the toolkit of change. What are other tools in that toolkit of change? Direct action, strikes, protests, cause-based initiatives.
Yeah.
And electoral politics is one tool in that toolkit. And it's an annoying tool and a shitty tool, but unfortunately it's freaking necessary. You can't really avoid it completely, but it's just one tool. And it's not only annoying and frustrating, it's over-amplified too, which makes it even more annoying and more frustrating. So they just see politicians as just these tools for getting what they want. They're not deities. They're not leaders. They're not movement leaders. They're not people to be worshipped. They're not even people you need to like. They're people you need to tolerate as much as you have to get the kind of change you want to see in the world. And that's just how you behave accordingly. So it's like, if you say, well, gee, to see the type of change I want to see in the world, we need to break up this duopoly. There is no other option. Well, that's what you pursue. And in the meantime, it's like, okay, would I rather tee up against a Cory Bush or a Mitch McConnell? Well, of course, I'd rather tee up against a Cory Bush than a Mitch McConnell. Like Cory Bush is not as bad as Mitch McConnell. However, that doesn't mean the system isn't completely effed. Just because there's some individuals who are better than others doesn't mean the system is not still completely screwed, and you still need to change that status quo. And the politicians, whether they're, worse or not as bad, they're still part of that frickin' status quo. They're still part of that status quo. Yeah. So don't put them on a frickin' pedestal no matter who they are.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
But so anyway, the bold, brave moderates are pushing for Reaganism and absolutely nothing else.
It's the fellowship of the Reagan. That's
the fellow. Yes, I love it. That's the fellowship of the Reagan. And it's just, and by the way, it's like everybody. It's not just these 9 moderates. They're just the people grabbing the spotlight right now. It's 90% of the United States government. I mean, it's like, most Democrats are conservative. And when I say conservative, I mean it in the true sense of the word. They're conservatives. They're only considered moderates in the United States. They wouldn't be considered moderates anywhere else.
Right. And it's hilarious because I've had conversations with a lot of people, and everybody points out, they go, it's crazy the way where American politics has gone. When Nixon had a more liberal immigration and refugee policy than any of the Republicans or most of the Democrats do. Like, that says a whole lot about the direction of American politics, right? Like, Nixon had liberal policies compared to people today is an insane thing to say out loud, but that's the reality that we're living in. And that's the reality of American politics, is that it keeps going further and further to the right as we the people move further and further to the left, and it's become unignorable at this
because
point.
They don't give a fuck about public opinion. That Princeton study revealed that.
Exactly.
And by the way, that Princeton study finally got like another boost, because I think like Now This or some organization made a video about it recently, and I'm like, that study came out a while ago, but I'm glad it's being amplified again. But it just showed that the public opinion, they don't really care.
I think Lawrence Lessig did something about it in 2014, and that's when it blew up. Like, he did he presented been around in the TED Talk. Yeah. Which that guy is also he's very interesting, and he's one of those people, I think was one of the first early people that I heard that was critical about electoral politics being so over amplified, and he used that Princeton study as an example of hey, look, like, you can over amplify this thing, but like, if our system works this way, you can't over amplify this thing that isn't going to work. Like, there are other steps that you need. So, and that I bring up that Princeton study in my stand-up act, and like, a lot of people are shocked by it. And that's not like a fringe school.
What is a stand-up premise? Be like, are you doing the Princeton study bit tonight?
I'm doing
of course, I always do the Princeton study bit. That's my closer. The Princeton study bit.
Ron, I'm really trying to work my way into obscurity. You know, it's like I'm not obscure enough.
There you go. Well, dude, let me ask you this, since you brought up like the Overton window and stuff. Which, by the way, for anyone, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's a weird term, but it's so convenient that I just use it. But the Overton window just means like, what is the acceptable realm of politics as far as people who have power? And here in the United States, it is neo-fascism and Reaganism. That's the gamut. That's literally the gamut in the United States. It is so far to the right. I don't think people realize exactly how extreme it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people realize that. And then it's like you look at some other countries, and again, of course, everywhere has their problems. But in parties that, or excuse me, in countries that have better systems than ours, which is a lot of them, it's not near as extreme. Like they don't, I mean, they do have some extremes, of course, but they have multi-party systems. So like the most extreme parties have no power whatsoever. You know, like they're these mainstream parties that are just straight up like nuts, but they have no power at all, and they hold no seats or whatever else. And so they're mainstream parties, you know. And I'm not saying the Tories are good. The Tories are terrible. I'm not saying that like all these center right parties in other countries are great, but I'm saying their bite is nowhere near as bad compared to what we have in the United States. They're to the left of the Democrats in most cases. That's how, like,
it's like you read headlines and like for the last couple of years it's just been like, am I reading an Onion headline or is this actually real? Like, or it's like I came up with the fucking stand-up premise 5 years ago that was considered absurdist, and now it's like this is actually happening. It's crazy, but you don't see that in the UK or in Canada. Like, you see horrible shit. I'm not saying there isn't any horrible shit up there, but it's not as like overtly farcical as it is in the United States. It's just like the last 5-6 years, it's just been like, what are we doing?
What
in
are we
this country?
doing? Well, dude, I got to ask you this, because I've been wondering about this. Is there any, so like the United States is like so far to the right that there's no other like pseudo democratic experiment that touches it. Like there just isn't. Like the only countries more conservative than the United States are places like Yemen. You know, like literally, like I'm not even trying to be funny. Like that's literally the truth. Is there any like pseudo democratic style country that is as to the left as the United States is to the right? Because like I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
Like I don't think there is, because if there was, it would be like, there's just nothing. I mean, you can't say like Sweden. I mean, like, no, they're not. Like again, are they as far to the left as the United States is to the right?
Yeah, you don't have that polarity. Even, I mean, social democracies and stuff aren't that as far to the left as the U.S. is to the right. They're
definitely
way
not.
to the left, but
Nowhere
it's not.
close. Yeah,
you know, like that's the thing is you would need a purely, I think it would have to be a purely socialist country in order to see that. You would have to have a country that doesn't value
I think
greed
it would
or profit.
almost. I think if there ever was such a thing, it would like dip into authoritarianism before long. And I say that because that is how extreme to the right the United States is.
It would lean more towards the benevolent dictator kind of thing.
That I think so. I mean, it's tough to say because it's kind of like a weird thought experiment, you know. But I mean, that's just how far to the people don't realize how freaking far to the right we are, and it's like, yeah, it's freaking nuts.
Well, it's like we're approaching 1984, and
we're there.
We're at this point we're there.
There, man. Like we are there.
But I always kept saying, like, people are like shocked as to being like, oh man, we're living in 1984, but we never get to see how 1984 happened. And it's like that was like the Bush administration, the Obama administration, and then we got to 1984, and people were like, "What? How did this happen?"
Like, yeah, 40 years of Reaganism caused it.
Yeah.
40 years of Reaganism and just like it inching more and more to like the far right. I mean, we're like we are almost we're to the right of an Ayn Rand novel.
Yeah.
Like we really are. And this infrastructure story today is just another testament to that. That they're fighting to the gills, instead of having a modest tax increase on the richest Americans. When again, the whole how we going to pay for it thing is a bunch of bullshit anyway. Um, Instead of doing that and having a still insufficient, but at least better than nothing infrastructure bill, they're fighting to the gills to just redistribute the crumbs of crumbs that were given prior.
Yeah.
It's so painfully phony. And so like you just kind of look around and you're just like, this cannot be saved. This electoral system cannot be saved, nor is it worth saving.
You can't
This is
run
not
from
worth
one
saving.
You can't go from one stopgap measure to another stopgap measure and expect things to work and people to be behind you all the time. Like that's why I'm really curious to see what happens in 2022 with the Democrats. I'm very
I think they're
going to
get slaughtered.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get slaughtered. I mean, and I don't think they care. I don't think, I think the Democrats have really shown, especially in the last, 5 or 6 years, winning is not priority number one. Priority number one is, well, let's make sure the donors in Wall Street are happy. And priority number two, well, if we can beat a Republican or two in the process, that's great because we kind of have to, or people are going to eventually catch on that this is all bullshit. And if we can do that while upholding priority number one, great. If we can't, well, we're just going to have to lose more. I mean, if Democrats actually truly represented the people they're supposed to represent, they'd never lose.
No.
They would never lose. And then Republicans would have to be a little more reasonable. They'd never lose. But because they're so freaking ineffective, people just take the chance on the Republicans every now and again. What a system, folks. And you know what? While we're fighting for this incrementalism, here's something. The climate still collapsing. Yeah. This is from Democracy Now! Climate crisis puts over 1 billion children at extremely high risk of extreme weather. A new report by UNICEF warns nearly half of the world's 2.2 billion children. So that's about half of all children. Over 1 billion children are at extremely high risk of severe floods, heat waves, drought, and other impacts of the climate crisis. Some of the highest risk countries include India, Nigeria, and the Central African Republic, and other nations that are responsible for less than 1% of greenhouse gas emissions. The first of its kind report was published in collaboration with Greta Thunberg and other youth climate activists on the 3rd anniversary of Thunberg's first student strike outside the Swedish parliament. Oh, and also, by the way, deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon has hit its highest annual rate in a decade. They're still destroying the wrong Amazon, folks. Wrong Amazon.
Yeah.
They're ruining the wrong Amazon. Yeah, they're still ruining the forest. And again, and the countries that are paying the most for it are the countries that aren't responsible for the problems. It's incredible. And we're in this as one world. And we need to cooperate as one world.
I don't want to be a bummer, but that was one of the issues where I was like, man, I feel like if climate change becomes a major priority, like fixing climate change becomes a major priority, that's going to get people on board to like set aside some differences and really push for change. But it's not because propaganda works really well in the United States. So there are still people in this country that say, "Oh, climate change isn't real," and even in this country, we're seeing some pretty extreme weather shifts, right? Like we've never seen heat and rain like this before.
Fires and floods, and yeah, I mean, dude, like, totally. Well, and again, this goes into the Overton window in other countries, and I tweeted about this, and somehow people. People who fancy themselves on the left somehow spun this into a bad thing, where it's like in other countries, even some of their more right-wing parties have are taking climate change seriously. And instead of taking the lesson that, well, yeah, in the United States, we are so freaking effed that, we don't take climate change seriously on either side. I mean, one side is saying, hey, it's not even a thing so we're not doing shit. The other side saying, hey, it's a thing, but we're not going to do shit. Like, and those are the choices. And meanwhile, in other countries, like even the more conservative parties are like, yeah, climate change, we got to do something. And I tweeted something about that, and other people were like, oh, so you want eco-fascism? And it's like, are you fucking really? That's your deflection? That's your like national, which is, by the way, a nationalistic thing to do, to assume that any conservative party in another country that gives a shit about climate change is automatically eco-fascist. I mean, eco-fascism is a real thing. Like, it is a real thing,
yes,
and it's a
absolutely.
terrible thing. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But to assume that any conservative party in any other country that gives a shit about climate change is eco-fascist, are you fucking nuts? And why don't we do something about the fascist parties in the United States? The Republicans are a fascist party.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, and the Democrats help them.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. You're going to call everyone over there an eco-fascist. Meanwhile, it's like, we got fascism all throughout our government on both Wall Street sponsored D's and R's.
Right.
And you're going to sugarcoat that. Fuck off.
Well, and then it's like they completely ignore the fact that like fracking companies claim rights to like the groundwater underground. It's like, oh, the surface is yours, but everything underneath that belongs to us. No one staked claim to the soil underneath the ground. It's like, what? It doesn't that kind of scream authoritarian to you? Like, you're like, how much are like you're claiming stake to the ground, like below topsoil? Like, what the fuck is that all? But you know what I mean? It's just, they completely ignore these ridiculous ways that these fossil fuel companies, these fracking companies go about conducting their business. That does make them a little more authoritarian. And they're like, oh, no, that's just the way things run. That's the other excuse, right? It's just, oh, that's just the way things work. It's like, oh, well, what's the alternative? What are you going to use? Solar? And it's like, yes, we could use solar power.
What's the alternative? That's just the way things work. Oh, and by the way, that's what people in the United States do to justify our empire.
Yeah,
they do. Well, that's just. I mean, what are we going to do? Someone has to militarize the world. No one has to. No one has to do that. Well, if we didn't do it, China would. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do that. Like, I mean, that's like, I'm not saying China doesn't have their problems. Of course they do, but they wouldn't do that. Like, there's no evidence indicating they would want to do that.
If they did, don't you think that they would be in Afghanistan by now?
And they're actually doing green initiatives around the world.
Yeah.
They're still a huge polluter. Don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not trying, but like, they're actually doing green initiatives that we're not. We're not doing anything like that. They actually are. I mean, it's just, it's so remarkable. And when you look at climate change and you think it's like, okay, we're in this as one world, there's some countries that are doing amazing things that give you hope. Like there's things that Denmark's doing, that Sweden's doing. And you're like, okay, like we can do this, but it's like, that's such a drop in the bucket if some of these big polluters, which sadly we're the big polluter.
Yeah.
Our war machine, factory farming, like we're one of the big polluters in the world. So it's like, we can't not act. I wish the rest of the world could just handle it, because I don't have any confidence in the United States at all.
I don't either.
but unfortunately, we have to be a participant. Like we don't have a choice. And I'm not saying unfortunately because I don't want to be a participant. Of course I do. I'm saying unfortunately because I have no confidence in our electoral system at all. And I have no confidence. I mean, it's like, we got to fight. We got to try. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you have, they're still like pushing for more fracking. They're still pushing for more. And we're getting out of Afghanistan, and it took 3 days or less than 3 days. I think Caitlin Johnstone tweeted about this. It was about 3 days between first they were trying to be like, we got to stay in Afghanistan because of women's rights. And then nobody bought that bullshit. So then they tried to be like, Afghanistan still has minerals. and we got to get them. They made it about exploitation of resources immediately, and they used their flowery CNN style language.
Well,
but they said the quiet part out loud still. They said, we still got to get those resources.
Yeah.
We got to get those.
If they use somewhat academic language, which is what these quote centrists and faux progressives and stuff do, is they use these flowery academic language, and everybody goes, oh, well, that makes sense. He said it. He used a couple big words in that NPR tone. So that must mean that that this guy's probably right, when it's just like, no, it's not. What makes you think that those minerals belong to you? And it's like, well, no one's staked claim to anything under the ground, right? Like that's ours. Where I had a good friend of mine, Stuart Huff, told me this story when he was in Alberta, I think. But he was talking to somebody there, and they basically said, as a justification for fracking and, like oil pipelines and stuff like that, the justification is literally, well, look, if God didn't want us to get this oil, why would God have put it there?
See, once you say God, I stop listening.
Dude,
I just, and I'm not, like, no offense to people with like religious beliefs or whatever, but that has nothing to do with like science. That has nothing to do with civil, how we conduct ourselves as a society. That has nothing to do with it. Like if you have beliefs, that's fine, but it just has no bearing here. Like if we're talking fracking and you start, you bring up God, and it doesn't make sense anyway. Because it's like, well, I mean, we can use your own logic against you. And there was actually, you feel bad bringing him up because of everything that's happened as of recent. But, to give credit where it's due, Louis C.K. actually has a really good bit about that. There's a really, it's he's a gross person, but he did make some brilliant comedy. And there's a Louis C.K. bit where he talks about that. And there's other similar bits, but like Louis C.K. has the one I'm thinking of where he talks about, like, if God came back,
right?
Like if God came back and like just looked around the earth and just said, "What did you do?" Like, it is a very good
food. Bit. It's right there,
right? Yeah. He talks about there's food everywhere. Why did you take this out of the ground? Why did you take this out of? We had to go faster. Why? But to have a job. What's a job? What's a job? It's like, well, you go and you work for money. What do you need money for? Well, I got to get food. I left it all over the ground.
It's right on the ground.
Yeah, but it doesn't have bacon on it. It's a good bit. That's a Louis C.K. bit.
Yeah, it is
a great bit. But
that's the justification, man. It's like, I hear that kind of shit, and then it's like, especially Pennsylvania, it's like if you get 30 minutes outside Pittsburgh, you get to see these giant billboards that say something like, oh, the Green New Deal is the death of America, or some crazy thing, stuff like that, which is a vast improvement from claiming that, burning natural gas is, quote, clean energy. And it's like, how many hypocrisies can you have in one sentence? Like, it's like burning anything is not clean energy.
It's so funny that they rail against the Green New Deal and they don't even realize that they wouldn't be able to even make that sign if it wasn't for the New Deal. Isn't that interesting? I mean, It's interesting. Krish, I got one more story I wanted to do with you today. And I know this is going to be hard for you because I know you're very sad that Cuomo resigned. I know he was your buddy. I know that you identify as Cuomo-sexual still. You're holding on. And I'm sorry. But
vacations in the Finger Lakes are going to be very different.
I watched I was entertaining the idea of watching his farewell address live. But it was at 9 Pacific time, which is just too early for me. And I'm glad we didn't do that because I watched some of it and it was just really fucking boring. I mean, everything he was saying was complete bullshit. And so you could have stopped it and been like, that's bullshit. And here's why. But it's also just really freaking boring. I mean, he was just going on and on about like, we did so great during this bit. Really? You did. You screwed over hospitals, nursing homes. You took money out of Medicaid during a pandemic. You
And then you
screwed
gave
over the
tax
homeless
cuts to your
again.
billionaire friend.
Then you gave tax cuts to your rich friends. Oh, you crushed it. New York crushed it with your help.
You
Really?
didn't even write your own fucking book, bro.
But here's something that we got to correct misinformation. Andrew Cuomo, according to this, he's not trying to give his dog away. All right, check this out. This was circulating. This is kind of funny. Cuomo's dog Captain. He named his dog Captain.
Buddy.
That's a stupid name for a pet. I'm sorry, Captain. That's he's so obnoxious. I call him Captain because he's the captain of this ship. You know what I mean? He tells me when it's time for a walk. What a boring, just God. What a boring fucking family.
Dude.
So they named their dog Captain, which good job. And it's not Captain's fault. This is a dog who deserves love and probably doesn't get it from this clown. So, Captain, we're rooting for you. It's not your fault. It is not your fault. I feel bad for the dog, and I love dogs. And you know what? Here, let's get into it.
That's a cute dog.
Yeah. Cuomo's been staying with his sisters, because times are tough and he needs to save money on rent. And he asked his staff members at the executive mansion, because he's not kicking it there much anymore. He's moving on to a new gig. If anyone would like to keep his dog, just here, take the dog. Now, so what they're saying is that it wasn't permanent. Richard Azzopardi, a senior advisor and spokesman for the governor, who I guess is still shamelessly keeping that gig, lashed out at the allegation that the governor has been looking for someone to care for the canine. He said the arrangement was only temporary because the governor, who's scheduled to resign from office, I guess tonight, as of the recording of this, is planning to take a vacation. Which, again, just like Congress, he's earned it. I mean, come on.
He deserves it.
As a party, also said that he and the governor have more important things to deal with as the tropical system Henry was bearing down. All right, blah, blah, blah. All right. So he's not trying to get rid of his dog, folks. He's not. It's just a temporary thing. He's not trying to get rid of the dog. Go easy on him. Chris, you there?
Oh.
I lost you for a second.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think we're back.
Yeah, I think you're back. I thought maybe at first you were just speechless. You were like, I can't take it. Of course he didn't want to get rid of his dog. I need to tweet about this.
Dude, my ex-wife's parents named their cat Captain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is really funny to me.
Now I feel bad. They don't watch this show, do they?
I don't think so. I'm involved. They don't watch anything I'm involved.
All right. Well,
but he deserves that.
I feel like if someone else did it, I wouldn't be judgmental. But because of Andrew Cuomo and his personality, I just picture him being like, well, we're going to call him Captain. And I'm just like, God, you're such a douche. And he's like, the Captain. Misogyny's Italian. Like, fuck you. What the fuck? No.
That was the most ridiculous argument. It's just like, I touch people. It's what they do in Italy. It's like, I don't think they do that.
So it's not. Yeah, I don't have any vendetta against naming your pets Captain. It's just the Captain name combined with Cuomo's douchiness led me to that perspective.
Do you know how some people give their pets their last name? Do you think that he called him Captain Cuomo? Because that would be incredibly douchey.
Yes, he did. Of course he did. Of course he did. And his Fredo brothers celebrated it. They all probably saluted the dog. Poor dog. Have you ever met someone? So I have known some people in my personal life who are of the ilk of Cuomo, like Democratic establishment, DNC, very wealthy. And it's part of the reason I feel the way I do about the world. I have known some of those people, and I've noticed how, they're just a lot of them that I've known. Well, pretty much all of them that I've known, because I've only known a few, but they're not capable of having a friend. They're not really capable of empathy. It's all just a game to them. Like it's all just, they don't really care about any actual change in this country. It's just a game to them. And another thing that I've noticed when you have those personality traits, which is like basic by the book narcissism, you're not able to love an animal. Like, it's just something you're not able to do. Like you can't do it. And when you see stuff like that, it's just really freaking sad. And I don't know if Cuomo's in that category. And I can't say because I don't know the guy. But
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet he falls into that category. And it's so, like, you feel so bad for that animal. That's why, like we were talking about pets on my patron stream yesterday, and I was talking about how, like, you know, like if you're able to have a pet and you want one, you totally should, because they really help get through these times. I do. I mean, my cat has been. I mean, Lucy's kept me sane throughout all this. Me and my wife both, you know, and I was saying, I'm like, look, I understand that pets cost money. Like, yeah, pets aren't free. You have to feed them. You have to take care of them, and I get that, you know, but you don't need to be wealthy to have a pet either. And you don't need to be wealthy to give them a good life, because the most important thing is the love you show them. That's the most important thing. And that doesn't cost you a dime. You know, like, yeah, you got vet visits, you got food, you got, you know, like litter if it's a cat, or a bunch of other things if it's a dog. I mean, I think dogs are a little more expensive than cats, but, like, you know, it's the most important thing is the love you show them. And when you see people who have dogs that, like, they're not capable of doing that, it's sad. And you feel really bad for those animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I've met a couple people that are like, nah, it's just something that's here. You know, I give it food and water, and that's
They
about
treat it
it.
like they treat them like their property.
Yeah.
Like, they really do.
Yeah.
Like, they see them as just property. And they see, I mean, it's, and I've seen it, and it breaks your heart. And you know that the animals realize it, because when they're around other people who, like, genuinely do love animals, they will migrate to those people. I've seen it happen. Like, I have seen it happen where, like, dogs of people who fall into the category that I'm referring to, they will migrate to, like, other people who they know genuinely care for animals. They just
Yeah.
will.
My
It's a weird mind fuck, man. It really is.
my roommate's not a big animal person. Like, he's fine with them, but it's not his bag, which is fine because he doesn't have any animals. But
Yeah,
like
he doesn't have them.
right? But like Milo would go and try to hang out with him, and because he doesn't like show him the affection, now he's just like, all right, man, you're doing your thing. I'm gonna go lay on the couch. Just don't
Yeah.
come near my tail. I'll be good. All right.
Well,
Like,
cats are always curious to see what your deal is.
yeah.
And if you don't make it clear to them, they'll just get more curious. You know, like Lucy, she'll, like, be intrigued by somebody, and sometimes it'll be like, I really want to pet you a bunch, but I'm deathly allergic. And those people, that's hard, because now the cat's not really sure. They're sensing you dig them, but you're not, like, showing it, and they're wondering why, because they don't understand the concept of allergies. That's not something you can explain to a cat. And so they're just kind of.
I've tried.
I've tried. When Lucy sneezes, I explain it, and she just doesn't give a fuck. She's just like, I'm gonna bathe myself. I don't know what your deal is, but yeah. So they're just kind of like, well, I know you want to give me attention, but you're not. I guess you're too. Are you too stupid to know what you're supposed to be doing right now? I'll help you. Here, let me nuzzle. Let me butt your head. You're supposed to pet me. Do you not? No one taught you this? My human can teach you. Ron, can you show this person? They're allergic to you, Lucy. You got to leave them alone. They'd pet you a bunch if they could. I'm going to carry you away from them now. Why? No, they want to give me attention. Ron, you're fucking this up. They don't know how to give me attention. Can you explain it to them? I'm going to make this verbal noise that I make called a meow for you, which that's a theory, by the way. Like, there's a theory that it's like, you know, whenever they make a sound, like when they're threatened with other cats, it's a total different kind of sound.
It's
the
awful.
Meow they do for us is just something like they think we need verbal confirmation. So they do that for us. Like, they're like, well, we're helping you out because you're so stupid.
That's what Milo does every time.
Not, I don't know how. You cannot. It's weird. They think that we can't feed ourselves without poisoning ourselves. Like, they're like, I better check your food because you're very stupid. And I know that I've known you for 15 years and you've been making pasta for all 15 of those years. but I better check each and every dish you prepare, because anytime might be the
case.
moment where you really fuck this up and you die, and then
Dude.
I'll have to eat you.
Yeah.
Yet they let you feed them.
Which is so
It's weird. Like they're like, you can feed me. You figured that one out. But yourself, I better help out.
I have to feed Milo before I get my coffee, but then he'll come down and be like, whoa, where are you going with that cup?
Yeah.
Where are you going with that
there's
cup?
probably poison in that cup that's going to fuck you up.
Yeah, and then he smells it and he's like, it's that gross brown stuff you drink. All right, it's fine. It's fine.
He's like, that's safe. It's just weird. I don't want it. And I've just inspected it. That's what they're really doing. Whenever people are like, why do they like sniff our food, but they don't do it? Yeah, they're checking it for you.
Milo has to smell literally everything. So even when I bring out the coffee bag and he's downstairs, like when I make my evening coffee and he's downstairs, he's like, yo. And he's gotten to the point where, like, we have our coffee maker next to a set of drawers in the kitchen. Like, he'll climb up onto the drawers trying to get up to the counter to smell it. And it's like, all right, man, like, I'll just let you sniff it. You're not going to be happy about it because you don't like the smell of this thing. And we do this every day.
Yeah.
We do this every day. Like, but he's gotten so used to it that even now, like, when my friends come over, he'll go up and be like, hey, are you dumb too?
Yeah, right. Like, he's like, do you need me to inspect something for you? I don't like taking care of too many of you all at once. If it starts to piss me off, I'm just going to go under the couch. I'm not a miracle worker, for fuck's sake. But you guys spread out. I can get on board with that. I'll kind of bounce around, make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
That's what Lucy does. Venetia David, thank you so much for the super chat. You gave me a dancing lemon. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the dancing lemons. Thank you for that. You help keep the show on the air. And shout out to wherever it is that you are. I see you have a foreign currency that you gave me. So thank you for that. And shout out wherever you're at. And Krish, where can people go to find you?
They can go right to my website, which is krishmohanhaha.com. It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. I'm going to be working on a couple of new projects for the next couple of weeks, and then getting back to the regular live stream in about 2 weeks. So
right on. Yeah. Do you want to stick around for my send-offs and my movie update, or do you need to bounce?
Oh yeah, I'll hang out. Yeah.
All right. So you'll hang out. So first of all, everybody, my trailer is out now. You can find it at GoFundMe.com and type in "left at wall." Krish is actually going to be in the movie. Hopefully, there's a role that I want Krish to play. So Krish will be in the movie, unless he declines.
I'm playing the part of Wall Street.
Krish is just
the entirety.
He's just playing Wall Street. Like in the movie, Wall Street's just a dude. Krish. And he's just like, yeah, I'm the guy. And we're going to do it like Wizard of Oz style. It's like the CEO is in front of the curtain, and then there's another curtain and another curtain and another curtain. And that's where Krish is. But my movie trailer is out now. I'll go ahead and I'll drop it in the chat again. But it is out now. Please check it out. If you are able to contribute, that's fantastic. And I appreciate it so much. We're trying to raise the funds to make the movie a reality. But even if you can't contribute, check it out anyway. And for everyone listening to the podcast, you can just go to GoFundMe.com and type in the movie "Left at Wall," and it comes up. And watch it. If you can contribute, that's great. We got all kinds of perks for people who contribute. You get a shout out on Get Your News On with Ron, which I'm going to give my thank yous here in a second. You also get behind the scenes footage when we're making the movie. We're going to do like all kinds of fun videos and interviews and stuff, and we'll share that with you. And also there's going to be a virtual screening with a Q&A with the cast, and you can get your name in the credits. So there's all kinds of fun perks if you give. So please check it out. Again, that's GoFundMe.com and just type in "left at wall." And you can also see the trailer on my pinned tweet and on this YouTube channel and on Rockfin. It's there. The movie is "Left at Wall," and you can find the GoFundMe link there and just check it out. Watch the trailer. If you can contribute, fantastic. Even if you can't, please check out the trailer anyway. It's very much appreciated. And let me say my thank yous here. Anissa, thank you so very much. Isabel, thank you very, very much. Jennifer, thank you. Samantha, thank you so much. Julie, thank you so very much. And Ronald Placone, related to me. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Private, we got a private one. Thank you, private. If you list it as private, I won't say your name unless you email me and tell me to say your name, because I'm assuming you don't want me to say it. But thank you, anonymous. Lynn, thank you so much. Julie Pacetto, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I guess I should do first and last name, shouldn't I? All right, let me start again. Anissa Y, thank you. Isabel Tassi, thank you. Jennifer Troxwell, thank you. Samantha Barr, thank you. Julie Malingowski, thank you so much. Ronald Placone, thank you very, very much. Private, thank you. Lynn Bajik, thank you so very much. Julie Passato, thank you very, very much. Rebecca Barr, thank you so much. Oh, wait, this was a private. Oh, sorry about that. That was actually a private one. Mats Lindalv, I might be mispronouncing that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mats. And Rosemary Carragino, thank you very, very much, Rosemary. Thomas Kiley, thank you so much, Thomas. And Robert Gilbert, thank you so very, very much. Thank you guys so much for supporting this project. And folks, last but not least, tour dates. I got them. We announced a bunch of cities, ronplacone.com. You can grab tickets now. Of course, we're monitoring everything that's going on in the world. And hopefully it will be safe, and we'll see you very soon. If it's not safe and we won't be seeing you very soon, we will let you know as soon as possible. Whew, didn't think we'd be in this situation, but here we are. Here we are. Tour dates might not happen a second year in a row, which makes me very, very sad. But we're going to do the best we can. We're going to do the best we can. Hopefully everything will be safe and we'll be there. If not, we will let you guys know as soon as we know. And we're playing it by ear. But hopefully we're going to be seeing a bunch of you really soon. And you can go to ronplacone.com to find out all the cities we're coming to. And if not, we'll be seeing you when it is safe, as soon as it is. And what a time, huh, Chris?
Yeah, man. It's just like it's funny. It's just putting all that work into booking shows and reaching out to stuff. And then everybody's like, oh, the world's on fire again. It's like, shit. All right.
It's so frustrating. It's because, I mean, it's like booking shows is the worst part about what we do. It's seriously like, it's so annoying. It's so frustrating. But then doing the shows is the best part of what we get to do.
Yeah.
So it really sucks. I mean, imagine in your job having to do the worst part, but then not getting to do the best part.
Yeah.
And that being the case for a year and maybe another one. It really sucks. It really sucks. But, we're in this as one world. And, we're all in this together. What else can you say? Krish, everyone check Krish out. And Milo says meow. And Krish says peace. And Lucy says meow. And she says hello to Milo. And I say peace. So we'll see y'all later. Peace.